We've been dealing with growth here in Union County for as long as I've lived here. And currently, the town of Waxhaw is considering several developments. One particular large development referred to or given the polo grounds was proposed to some 1,300 acres of homes, apartments, what have you. And as one of their elected officials said, you know, the schools are our problem, not city of Waxhaw. So I feel compelled to give, and this is my own opinion. I do not speak for my other board members. I do not speak for the board as a whole, and I do not speak for the administration. I'm just speaking for me. But I want to give my personal take on what such a gigantic development would cause to the school system, to how to react to such of a sudden influx of residents. Now, first of all, I want to be very clear. I will not support any type of student realignment to accommodate this kind of, in my personal opinion, foolish undertaking. So I'm not going to displace current UCPS families to make room for this kind of growth. Now, this many homes and with undoubtedly that many students is going to cause the need for an entirely new additional cluster. High school, middle school, at least one elementary, and maybe more.
Two clusters.
Yeah. And folks, we're talking in the range of probably 225 to maybe by that time, $250 million. Okay? So that's everybody in Union County is going to be sharing the pain on that. As far as a timing for those schools, we currently have a long-range plan. And in my personal opinion, we should continue with rebuilding of our older high schools before, you know, putting in line. I'm not going to shove them out of line for a new cluster. So we could be looking potentially at 2028 before it would even be an opportunity to put a cluster or new schools to accommodate this on the ballot. Okay? That's if the voters approve it, you're talking about design, land acquisition, and the actual construction. I dare to say new schools would not open before 2030 at the earliest. Okay? And that's if they're approved. Okay, so how would we address this? Well, if you look at school capacity in the Waxhaw area, there's no room in the inn right now, in elementary particularly, or high school. The only solution I envision until we either can or the voters agree to new schools would be to transport these students to existing clusters with capacity. Elementary students to the Monroe cluster, and potentially middle and high school students as far away as the Forest Hills cluster. Now, that's an absolute transportation nightmare. So how would you address that? Well, in my mind, you'd have to have collection hubs. In other words, you wouldn't have neighborhood bus stops. You'd have to have a centralized area or areas where parents would be responsible for getting their students to and from these transportation hubs, and then UCPS would transport them to the appropriate school. We would not have the manpower, facilities, or time to be running every other street in the neighborhood, these new neighborhoods, to transport students to these clusters. So I'm sorry, Monroe and Forest Hills, but if this comes to fruition, in my mind, in the short to medium term, that's the only solution. And I think I don't know what the timeline is for the consideration of this development. I don't know if it's going to be coming before their planning board in the next month or so, which would then, it goes to a planning board and then it goes to the council for final approval. And I don't know what the timeline is for that, but I felt compelled to at least give my own personal opinion how we would address this large of a development in an area of our county that is already at or near full capacity. Thank you, Madam Chairman.